You're listening to Perspective on WFHR 1320 AM, 97.5 FM. I'm Melissa Kay, bringing you news in our community. During this interview, I'm talking with Wood County Sheriff Sean Becker on August 5th, 2026. Thank you for joining me, Sean, to bring the community an update from the Wood County Sheriff's Department.
Always a pleasure, Melissa. I really appreciate it.
Well, let's start with something that, for us recording this on August 5th, hasn't happened yet, but National Night Out happens on August 6th, and as our listeners are hearing this, it already happened. But, Sean, tell us about this night and how important this is for law enforcement to get out and interact with the community.
Yeah, this is one of those events that's been, happening quite a while, and just you have to give the thanks to the people that step up in the community that want to, really highlight that partnership with law enforcement, your local law enforcement, and your community members. And it happens all over, and there's different, twists, municipalities and other jurisdictions will do, and we've got a great partnership. We really lucked out with the Rafters organization. Joe Fontes reached out wanting to make this event bigger and bigger since they purchased the team, and it's just it's been a really great partnership to have with the Rafters organization, having all the law enforcement presence coming into the stadium, just something to really highlight, an opportunity to, interact with us and, go see a baseball game. And then, they're gracious enough to have, the event goes from 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. tomorrow night. And then that will carry into the evening with the game as well, where you'll see law enforcement officers, continue to hang out with people during the game. So it's just a great way to highlight that community partnership, and we're really lucky to have the local partnership with the Rafters. We'll be there. A big shout out to our deputy Terry Johnson, who stepped up, who's going to be there throughout the event. We'll have our MRAP there, along with other equipment from the Sheriff's Department. We always like to get the MRAP out just so people can see it. I always say it's the biggest insurance policy that we have for our special response team in the community. We let people go in and take a look at it, sit in there, take photos of it, whatever they like. But it's an armored vehicle that a lot of the special response teams, SWAT teams, throughout not just the area here, but throughout the country that they have. And I always look at it as that insurance policy that you have to protect the community and the people that are part of our special response team. So, yeah, it's going to be a great event. Looks like we're going to have great weather. I know this will already air by the time it happened, but just a huge shout out to the people that come out and interact with us, those partnerships. Gamber Johnson again stepped up to sponsor the event. So it's those kind of partnerships gives us the opportunity to have these events like this. So a big thank you to everybody, and thank you to Terry Johnson to step up and be part of it and kind of run it for us. With connecting to the Sheriff's Department.
Because those opportunities don't come up as often for law enforcement to interact with the public on a good day. Like a lot of times you guys are I know I've gone to these National Night Outs in previous years, and it's fun to see law enforcement officers smiling and interacting with children and the public in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. You wish you had them weekly. That's right. That's why I really, love the show, where we can, talk about it and people can hear about it. And then, when you see an event that, whether it's the Sheriff's Department or, police department that puts out information, hey, we've got an opportunity to hang out with it. It doesn't have to be National Night Out. It could be really anything. And, we get to highlight that. And I think that's so important, going back to, just looking at the career and with me and, hey, it's that community-oriented policing aspect of it that, has been brought up many, many, many decades, years ago, but it's so important. And, as things, change and technology changes, that still gives us an opportunity to highlight, our law enforcement agencies. So you see that social media thing, that's one thing that we like about our page. We want to make it sure that it's informative,
Mm-hmm.
but you're seeing the positive things of our sheriff's department and other local law enforcement agencies. That's we want to get information out there, but it just seems like it's the best way to get that platform of positivity with law enforcement. I always really like to highlight definitely our staff and what they're doing out in the community, because people are so connected to their phone, and they're going to see something positive. And if you can't get to an event like that, well, you're going to see what we have been doing. But I always recommend, hey, coming out and connecting with us directly is the best way to get to know us instead of looking at your phone.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way it is today, and we understand that, and we're all changing to try to get our message out there, our positive message.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of those positive messages is the recent post I just saw about the Wood County dispatcher who coached a mother to be able to save her child who was choking.
Yeah, isn't that a great story?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Our daughter Jordan's, she started her career here at Wood County as a dispatcher. Now she's a dispatcher up in Oneida County as a sergeant, and these are just stories that I love to see. When our dispatch team put that out, like, hey, we had a save,
Mm-hmm.
and you dig into it. It makes me, not just as a parent of a dispatcher, but just as a law enforcement officer. Our dispatchers are part of our team.
Mm-hmm.
Just to smile and look at how they just saved somebody's life. So Jessica, you crushed it. We got to hear some of it. The interaction, that phone interaction with, you can imagine with a mom who's panicking,
Right.
and their child is choking, and then hear the calmness Jessica has to say, okay, do this, do that,
Mm-hmm.
and then it works, and it saves a life. And those are great ways to highlight, what our dispatchers do, because they, I'm a little biased because of my daughter Jordan, but it's true. I mean, they're true heroes that sometimes, unfortunately, just get forgotten. And I don't feel that way, and I don't think the community does. But you just kind of forget, that
Mm-hmm.
whole system. Where does that first call go? It goes to dispatch, and they have to handle it, and then determine, all right, this is the people that are going to need to respond and help, and then I still have to help the people I'm talking to. So it's all one big team, and congrats, Jessica. You are a true hero.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I mean, from personal experience, anytime I've called the dispatch office here in Wood County, their customer service is wonderful. They're always able to answer my questions or direct me to where I need to go. And in this case, she saved a life. That's incredible.
Absolutely. Something she'll never forget. That's for sure.
Or that mother
Mm-hmm.
and child.
Oh, you know it. You know it.
Well, and another thing, we've talked about this for months now, the behind the bars filming that took place with the A&E channel, that aired.
Yeah. It aired on July 23rd, so on A&E, and another really proud moment of, for me, it was a great opportunity to highlight our staff, and and then people get to see that $93 million investment they made into the sheriff's department, the community did. I think we got really lucky that the production company reached out. We didn't know what we were getting. Ted Ashbeck and I, we sat down like, gosh, do we do this? The people that were filming the cops episodes, they were really nice. I think that got us some exposure for this other production company to come out, and they did a great job, really getting the opportunity to come in and film our staff as we, dealt with people, and then compare us to another jail in Georgia. There are 2 episodes that aired that night, and now you can get to them just by any of the streaming platforms, Hulu, YouTube. You could find it if somebody just does a search A&E behind bars. It'll come up because I hate to admit I've watched it twice now. My daughter from Madison, Caitlin, her husband Dylan were in town, and I'm like, hey, have you seen this? And they said no, and I'm like, really? And I'm like, okay, well, and then we got an opportunity to watch it. But just a great way to highlight our staff, and people see what it takes to be a corrections officer. Again, just like our dispatchers, they're a big part of the team, and they do a lot to keep themselves safe and, the inmates safe. They have a big part of the criminal justice system, and just a great way for people to see them, in action. There'll be another episode coming up in about a month. I'll put that information out. That'll be exclusive to the Wood County Sheriff's Department. Once the production company lets us know when that's going to air, they have a little bit of a control of that, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the next one will be called 120 Hours in a Jail, and that will be on the Discovery Channel. And so once I get that specific airing, I'll make sure that people get out that. And I don't want to give anything away, but there'll be a little bit of a human twist to that episode. Mm-hmm. Ted and I were able to, preview these episodes, and, not that we're hiding anything, because we're not. They just want to make sure that the names to the corrections officers and inmates are correct and that kind of stuff. So very similar to what we just saw, but this will be exclusive to just the Wood County Sheriff's Department, and have a little bit more interaction with the inmates. So that's all. I'll I don't want to be too much of a spoiler, but it should be out sometime within the next month.
All right. Well, that is something to look forward to. We're going to pause right here for a short moment to hear from our sponsors. I'm Melissa Kay, talking with Wood County Sheriff Sean Becker, and you're listening to Perspective on 1320 AM, 97.5 FM, WFHR. Welcome. You're listening to Perspective on WFHR 1320 AM, 97.5 FM. I'm Melissa Kay, bringing you news in our community. I've been speaking with Wood County Sheriff Sean Becker, and where we left off, we were talking about the film crews that had come here and recorded things in the jail, and speaking with corrections officers and things. And that there's another episode that will be coming out here sometime this summer, before we get into too much of the winter here. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now I'd like to dive into a recent thing that happened here in Eau Claire. You were able to meet with FBI Director Kash Patel and Congressman Derek Van Orden. This was a fireside chat talking about law enforcement partnerships. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the Badger State Sheriff's Association that I'm part of had reached out that the director was going to be in town and just kind of doing a Q&A kind of thing. And so I was invited as sheriff. One of our lieutenants, Nate Dean, also was invited because he got the opportunity to attend the National Academy. And then I put it out to other staff, do you want to go and, listen to this? And one of other sergeants, Matt Souza, was interested. So we went on Monday, and it was very informative. I didn't know when we got a picture of him and we posted it on our page that there would be some negativity, but I get that. When you're at that national level, you're going to draw negative attention as well. And, some of it's political, some of it's personal, but for me, it was an opportunity to spend time and hear, information at that federal level of law enforcement. And I've never met an FBI director before in my career. I always wanted to go to the academy. That was one of my career goals, to go to the National Academy. And then when we had a spot come up around 8 years ago, I had put in for it, was accepted, and then I was told I was too old. So yeah, and it is what it is. I'm a little bitter, but I'll get over it eventually. But Nate Dean stepped up, and he's a younger, leader in our organization, and, it's a big commitment too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're gone at the academy for 10 weeks and you have a family. You have to really, navigate that. And I give Nate a lot of credit. And I told him, because I relive this, often, because when we got the opportunity, I go, you're going to have to tell me that your family's supportive of it. And they were. And so he took that opportunity. So part of the meeting on Monday was talking about, those partnerships with your local law enforcement agencies. And that's a big one I just brought up, the National Academy, and what the director has done has expanded the opportunity for people to attend that academy, that goes on, I believe, 4 times a year. They're putting 300 people per class through, so 4 times, and that's throughout the entire country and other countries as well. That people are attending, that training. So that was talked about a lot. Leadership, law enforcement leadership, partnerships that you develop with, other agencies. But it's really focusing on, developing your law enforcement leaders and bringing that, that networking back to, the agency that you work for. A lot of people, just in our agency, a retired, sheriff and police chief Kurt Hoyer went through before. He was the last one to go through before Nate. And then, other mentors like Lieutenant David Lowdy, he's been retired for several years. He went, and he still speaks about, being at the academy and that impact it had on his career. And then Bob Odette, previous sheriff here who had recently passed, he went through. So, and you look at that, and I look at it even as I, get towards the end of my career, I've been pushing to try to get somebody else to go through. Yes, I would love to go to the academy, like I said, but if we get another opportunity to send somebody, which I hope we do, that'll be, one of our younger leaders here at the department. I think that just sets us up really well for the future. So part of that discussion on Monday was how the director has expanded that. So I'm hoping the state of Wisconsin will get more people that they can send to this academy. Right now, we only can send 16 people a year to the academy. And now that they added spots, I'm hoping that they'll do that. So that was discussed. And then, at the national level and at the world level, the fraud issues, that we're seeing. And we talk about scams all the time. And the majority of the people that, are being scammed, a lot of them elderly, that money is going out of the country, and it's so hard to track. And what has been being built within the FBI is a way to combat that, and the willingness to get involved with those local investigations. A big takeaway was, hey, you get a fraud investigation here. You don't quit at saying, hey, the money went out of the country. Well, now you connect with the FBI so they can connect it to obviously other fraud, investigations that are going on throughout the worldwide. And the FBI has been active in other countries in shutting down these frauds. And I thought that was a very, interesting thing to hear about. So it was really informative. Again, I know he's not well liked amongst everybody, is what it is. But I thought, our takeaway was there was information there that I felt was important to hear. Whether at the train level, and then, the big concern, which you're talking billions of dollars that we're getting frauded, throughout our country, and that they're, doing something about it, worldwide. And I thought that was interesting because I always felt that the FBI was only really staying within the United States, but no, they're obviously branching out throughout investigations throughout the world to try to keep us safe.
Well, and another thing that is happening here in Central Wisconsin coming up soon is the Central Wisconsin State Fair. That's at the end of the month. You usually have a presence there at the State Fair in just a booth. Yeah,
it'll start the 25th up in Marshfield, and that's a partnership that is, we were just revisiting this. Nadine, who I just talked about, we used to have, a booth, and we were like in the corner somewhere, and people wouldn't even really see us. And then we just weren't doing a booth much anymore. And then several years ago, we revisited it, and now we got a great spot that's been expanded with the market.
The office, aren't you?
Yeah, right as you come in, you're coming by the sheriff's department. So we're not going to argue about our space now. It's a great opportunity, as like we talked about National Night Out, and this is another one that we're going to be there for several days as the fair is operating with the Marshfield Police Department, fire department, dispatch. We're all like right in one spot, so it's a great way to, again, come hang out with us and eat some awesome food. I love being up there. I put a little weight after a few days, but between the gyros and you name it, just Awesome. And then all
So
the
much fun.
vendors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, and that's another, because you mentioned the partnerships and working together with other agencies.
Hmm.
You recently had not multiple, but there have been several where you've had to partner with Marshfield and help with the situation there, and the interdepartmental partnerships that we have here in Central Wisconsin seem very strong.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've always, highlighted. The people should be aware of that. The working together only provides a better public service to people. I mean, Marshfield Police Department or any other law enforcement agency can call us, and we will help, and we expect the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the biggest mottos that I learned with the Badger State Sheriff's Association is no sheriff stands alone, and you've seen that. I've seen it throughout our career where hey, we need help, and okay, how many people do you need? And that's just a great attitude to have because it provides a better service for people.
Well, and another thing that we have talked about multiple times over the course of our interviews here is the amount of stress and just the mental pressure that law enforcement deals with the scope of your job. We were talking about Bluegrass at the Lake and the donation to the Critical Incident Stress Management organization to help law enforcement handle some of that mental pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up because the foundation, the folks, the board at Bluegrass to Lake, they look at community things that they want to support, and they've been supporting us for a few years now. And it started with Jason Joling having a conversation with the folks there at Bluegrass to Lake and building that. The need for our wellness. And you said it. Our mental health. And I'm just very proud that people in the community believe in that and believe in us to keep us safe at all different levels, and especially mentally, and how important that is. And you see it when people struggle in our career, and here with the Critical Incident Stress Management team, the CISM team, once that was put together to really help all first responders that go to these tragic events, and they respond to them, they work through them, they keep that that incident safe for the rest of the community, and then they deal with it with families, friends, community, and it doesn't matter how what that incident is to us. I mean, we're going to deal with that, but then how do we deal with it afterwards?
Right.
And when you see something that you can't unsee, this is where CISM comes into place. And, with that support from, our Bluegrass folks, it's expanded. We're really exclusively to, Wood County, and, but, incidents are happening everywhere. And part of what Bluegrass wanted to see is that expand, and we did. We're in Portage County now. So just great people that continue to support, our mental health, and making sure that we stay, strong physically and especially mentally, because, how can we take care of you if we can't take care of ourselves? And just to see that continued investment in us is another really, really proud thing of this community.
We have a lot of wonderful things about our community, and one of them, I want to end on a very positive note here with Stuff the Bus, getting kiddos ready for this next school year.
Yep, that's coming up. Our county clerk, Trent Miner, has taken this on for several years, and he organizes it, and then really challenges or tells us, hey, we should support this, and we do. A lot of the departments from Wood County, we also, the community can drop stuff off, and they did. And then a big shout out to our office manager, Jenna McDonald, who kind of coordinates everything on the sheriff's department end. But it's a great way for us to come together and support the people in need this coming up school year when they don't have the availability or the funds to buy the school supplies that are required, and it's a great thing that we can support in our community.
Empowering our children to have the best possible chance at a good education.
Absolutely, and hopefully a lot of them want to be law enforcement officers, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we've got to close here. I'm Melissa Kay, speaking with Sheriff Sean Becker of the Wood County Sheriff's Department. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today, Sean.
Always a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
And thank you to listeners joining us for news in our community on Perspective 1320 AM, 97.5 FM, WFHR.